we actually feel that this is a very important topic, because what we're seeing is that these cycles of perpetrator, victim, savior, and people being polarized, going in wars against each other, is happening over and over and over again. So we want to take you through an outline of what we want to do with a group of people that want to be change leaders and visionaries, and that want to basically channel quantum potentials for peace and entangle ourselves and entangle the world with it.
Okay, so let's talk about the knowing field, which is the what we work with constellations. So it is basically the field that we connect to, and that's where we get information, we receive information, and here we're trying to so the Soul-Utions that we wrote there is not a typo. It's actually a really beautiful word that Angelique came up with. It's the Soul-Utions. So we are committed to creating the ripple effect of what we desire in this world, because we don't need to be many people to create the reality we want. As we know, the more we raise our frequency, heal ourselves, and remove the baggage that we carry on us, the more we tend to spread that to other people, and the higher frequency we are, the more effect that we get or we give to the world. So somebody who is not maybe as really elevated frequency wise will have actually less effect, but we believe that once we have this kind of a group and we do the work on ourselves, that it will ripple, and we'll explain that more in depth now.
So yeah, so basically when you study constellations, you see that actually there is a entanglement and repetition of transgenerational trauma. And we don't have to go very far, to actually see that, World War II actually started rippling into a type of World War III in different parts of the world. And that this has been ongoing as far as we know. It seems as if, we are still living in the 3D, but of course we as a group, we are in love with the quantum potentials. We are trying to birth new consciousness into the world. So if you look at this picture, we're no longer wanting to live in a world where some people have everything and some people have nothing, where some of us are going to be programmed into hating each other, where some groups are being excluded or abused, or where certain genders don't get a say. So although a lot of these things have been actually been resolved already, there is still a long way to go. And so what we want to do in this workshop is allow the unified field, or the knowing field, to channel the Soul-Utions, the quantum potentials for peace, unity consciousness, forgiveness, and healing through the participants in the group. And because some of you might have done constellations before, and Selen and I have been trained in constellations, what we notice is that the framework of the world of the facilitator is very important for what happens in a constellation. So when the constellation facilitator, like Selen and I, are very much rooted in a embracing of the quantum, and we're saying, okay, what is excluded? We have been excluding the quantum potentials for trustworthiness, collaboration, empowerment, safety, healing, love. So what if we as a group would invite these quantum potentials into the constellation and see how that would affect each one of us, and how we could be a tuning fork for peace that would affect others. And Selen found a very beautiful video to actually explain this.
Yeah, so let me, oh, actually, do you want to do the video now? We were going to do it. Let me find it. Hold on.
I think it's a bit further.
It's okay. It was meant to be. So you're not seeing my screen, so let me just do another share.
Yeah.
True phenomenon that is known as
So let me back up, sorry. I can't make this bigger, so I'll just do this and then we'll start.
deeply connected through a phenomenon that is known as entanglement. How could my meditation, how could my loving thoughts of gratitude and appreciation possibly impact the healing of another person in the room with me or halfway around the world? And the answer is that we are deeply connected through a phenomenon that is known as entanglement. Entanglement is the term in physics that tells us once something is unified, once something begins as a whole, even though it is separated physically by many miles or light years, is what they're finding in the cosmos, energetically everything's still connected. We are deeply connected.
So this is, let me reshare the, this is what we are basing, this is basically what we would like to do, see, because, sorry, I don't know why it's not sharing. Okay. Oh, is that good? Do you see it?
Yes, we're
Perfect.
right slide. Yeah.
So, this shows us the power of the work we do, because we do come from this oneness that Greg Braden was talking about in this video. And just the fact that we have the illusion that we're all separate and, beings doesn't mean that we are. That's, that's how we are connected on a soul level. So, that's why, Angelique and I were thinking about doing this, because we do know that there's a lot of power in this kind of work. So I don't know, Angelique, would you like to talk about this part, or do you?
Yeah, so I would say, who is this class? Well, it's actually for everybody, but you might be more attracted to join the class, either for 4 weeks or just for 1 week or 2 weeks, or whichever one you feel called to, is if you are looking at the world and you feel where are the answers and you're feeling very frustrated. And for me, myself, when I look at the news, I mean, it really disheartens me. It closes my heart. And today I was in a workshop with a very famous systemic teacher. Like literally there were 110 people in his workshop today online. And he's that famous. But he basically said, even for him, who's been doing this work for ages, like decades, it's still hard for him to look at the societal issues. And he said it is easier for us to turn away. And he said, because if you look at the issues, then what are the solutions? What do you need to do? And so when we look at the 3D and we come with answers from the 3D, it's very hard. It's very difficult. So this is why we feel that there will be 3 types of people. Those people who feel disheartened and they want to actually feel like, I want to feel empowered to look at the solutions, but not from a 3D level, but from a quantum potential higher level of consciousness, maybe from the future self or from the new earth. Maybe some of you are actually feeling very called to actually take part of healing the trauma, but they also don't know how. And some of you might even be personally entangled because you might be facing a war or some division or some polarity in your company or in your family or in your marriage or in the schools or in your businesses with your clients. So these are the 3 types of people I would say that would be interested to look at not so much the solutions from the 3D, but actually the solutions that are now ready to be faced by us and that want to be invited. These energies are just as real as the ones that we have been repeating in a trance as zombies, being entangled in hatred and polarization. Well, the next slides talk about the history and the things that we are entangled with.
Yeah. So so this is a very interesting one. I hope I get to explain it well because it's important to me. So we talk about the perpetrator, victim, and savior, and this is a triangle for us because honestly, when you look at this, you see the good guy and the bad guy and all that, but it's all a circle, and everybody's a victim. You know, when you are in this state, you know, when we are creating war, or when we are in the midst of a war, there is no victim or perpetrator. Everybody is a victim. So because the perpetrator has their own you know, issues, and they've been a victim at some point. So I hope that it's not really misunderstood from the way I explain, because I'm not trying to put the two in the same boat in any way, but it's each time that, you know, we constellate on these issues, we end up seeing that the perpetrator was once a victim. So when we start, once we start seeing the issue from that perspective, then there's we get to see the potential for healing. And as Angelique said, it's really, really important that we mention that it's quantum potential that we don't even know, but we are open to different potentials in the field, the best potential, the best possibility in the field for our reality, for our life, for our world. So it's not something that we know, we figured out or anything, and we'll figure it out together. And this kind of constellations really excite me because it's beyond my imagination, and I always love to connect to that part, you know, the beyond imagination.
It's the real unknown.
It is the real unknown, and you know, and that's it. That's where we live, and it's more fun than living in the past every day. So.
To go back to the victim, perpetrator, savior triangle, actually, when you look at families where there was a lot of victimhood, let's say, sometimes you see, and you also see it in countries and in histories, that the former victims become perpetrators. So this entanglement is very real. We cannot say, this is us, we're the good guys killing, we're the smart guys perpetrating, we're the better guys abusing. It's actually really, when you take a real deep step back, this whole separation consciousness between people and nations and religions, the divisions that are created, they are actually really keeping us all stuck in a really bad dream, in a daymare, not a nightmare, a daymare. And it is systemic, meaning means that when you look at it holistically, there are certain things that are contributing to this being repeated over and over again. And we have to look at the solutions in a systemic way, from a wholeness perspective. And from a wholeness perspective, love has always been excluded. And so when you come to a constellation, normally, you know, if you have something with perpetrator victim, there will be a lot of work that you need to do regarding, you know, seeing the humanity of the perpetrator and letting go of the entanglement with the sadness or the anger or the stuckness or the pain. But actually what we want to do is we want to go a step further, and that is, what if we as humanities, for as long as we know, have excluded, let's say, the higher consciousness that are now trying to come through, and that might be, you know, the consciousness of the civilization that we want to be when we ascend. But as Selen and I say, we have no clue what it would look like. But what we do know, and this is something that Selen and I really wanted to emphasize, Constellation work is not psychodrama. It's not role play. Literally, people download quantum potentials. They download the information in the field. And so those of you who have been in the constellations, you know that you don't know what's going to happen. You know, healings happen sometimes. People start feeling very different than their usual self. And so this is why it's exciting for me and Selen, because we are excited to meet the quantum potentials for the timeline where we heal the systemic traumas that all of us carry with us, all of us.
Oh, now the video, so we'll skip that. So this is beautiful. I would like to talk about this actually. So the birds that are leading in emergence. So the first time Dr. Joe talked about this, it was in an event that it was my first event actually. They filmed these birds flying together in a triangle shape like this. And he talked a little bit about that, but then I was, I was very interested, so I did some research on it. So it turns out, like he talks about everybody leads and there's no one leader. So as you can see in the picture, the bird in the front looks like it's leading. So the bird in the front is doing a lot of work, and uses a lot of its energy, and through the wind that it creates, the other birds, like the further back they go, the less energy they use, and even the back ones, actually they're almost not even spending any energy flying. And then that front one, I've even watched that happen, when I was observing birds, goes way back. So it goes to the easiest part. And then the second one shifts. And so it's this shift that everybody eventually is the leader and takes all the positions here. And that's the only way that they can migrate from one place to another, especially when they have to fly long distance, because otherwise it's physically not possible for them to. So this is a very beautiful example that in the world that we can actually live like that. But right now we just have, we created in the last, I don't know how many years with the wars, we created a society where there's one person that leads and then the rest follow. But kind of like Dr. Joe says, when we all lead, when we are all in the leader position, things change, we go further, we get less tired, and it's a better way of doing this, because we are in a community with love and care and attention. So instead of being alone, like one bird could not migrate by itself all that distance in that time. So that is the mindset that we are coming from. And so that's why we wrote here, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And that holographic universe that we are living in, because we're kind of living in a different kind of a reality, then we get to make changes and see things in a different perspective, and even be hopeful for the future, whereas most people are not.
And when we talk about change, we're talking about real change, not and change cannot happen top down, because you have too much resistance. So it has to come from everybody. And Selen and I looked up the word emergence, and in Wikipedia it says, in philosophy, systems theory, science, and art, emergence occurs when a complex entity has properties or behaviors that its parts do not have on their own, and emerge only when they interact in a wider whole. So, and this is, of course, the beauty of basically a group doing work that elevates us to be tuning forks for higher consciousness, is that we cannot do it on our own. We will have to do it as a group, and we will have to look at all the parts of what we're trying to transform.
Oh, I went too far. What happened here?
Oh, you went back
Oh,
somehow. Yeah.
okay, now we're good.
Yeah, so I think it's very important that when we're working with higher consciousness, we're not looking back, and we're probably not even trying to figure it out with the consciousness that we are right now. And it might even be feeling very, very out of our comfort zone. But as we all know, change has always been inspired by visionaries, which is people who see the impossible before it happens. And they also see the need for evolutionary change that will benefit the whole. And so a lot of things have been recycled, you know, as solutions, but actually they're coming from the same consciousness. And I think worldwide, there's a huge awakening happening where people are feeling, we're not going to do this anymore. And we are just playing our small part because this is our training with quantum constellations. It's very, very easy to tap into these types of higher potentials. And the tribe that we work with, they are every day tuning into quantum potentials, but it's very difficult to actually know what it feels like. So you might do it in a meditation and you might still think, is it real? You might feel very elevated in a meditation, but then you're still alone. This is an opportunity for us to work as a group and to really make it more tangible and more practical in our 3D lives, to embody it in the 3D after we've done the constellations.
So now let's talk about the knowing field that we talked about a little bit earlier. So it's basically, you know, we get to this field of quantum potentials, and you know, as we all know, there's infinite amount of potentials in the quantum. And by doing this work and just by the group, you know, the group is important. People who are contributing in the group is important. And with the groups leading, right, as in, you know, we're emerging together. So we find the best possibility of the quantum potential for the solutions. I love this word. You know, for ourselves, actually, our personal lives, and but also for the reality of our world. You know, now actually a lot of people are kind of done with these polarities that are kind of getting bigger and bigger, with things separating us due to language, religion, culture, land, but all those actually contribute to who we are and the weight that we are carrying from our past. So that's a reality. So where I am from, the land I come from, is very important for me to go back and look at, to heal things, all the war, all the culture, all the baggage, the weight of my family and my country, so that I always call this like a backpack. You know, I have this backpack full and it's kind of heavy on my shoulders after so many years. When I start emptying it, then I feel lighter and I have more room in order to create something better that I choose, not my destiny, but that I choose from the possibilities that we have, which is, you know, infinite number.
So what will we do? I think the first week, Selen will be leading something. That was your download.
Yeah. So I thought, just like I was sharing earlier, without getting rid of like some of our baggage, it's hard to look at the potentials, you know. So we will look into some of the ways of how we, you know, what the fight or flight systems in us is. I always love to clarify this because fight or flight is something we like and we want. No, I'm sorry. That system in our body, that we want that, you know, if we are in danger, physical danger, we want our body to be able to react. But when we have fight or flight 24 hours a day, or at times that we don't really need it in our body, in our physical body, then it creates fear and anxiety and other emotions. Then that separates us from the potentials, from love, from wholeness, from this lightness and safety, security, and all those sensations and emotions. So we would like to transform what doesn't belong to us anymore to that, what you see, whatever that is. There's so much information there. There's so much possibility there. So I'd like to go to that love and the possibilities. And yes, it sounds kind of heavy, but we are actually going to shed and move on and make it something fun and light, at the end. So I'm very excited for this one. Oh, why is this doing this? I'm sorry. It's my,
Yeah.
I think
There is something where you go to the end instead of going to the next one, I think. Yeah, see 14 here.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So a lot of our identities come from the archetypes, the universal subconscious mind and programs that we run. And, some of us very often will feel like victim, and then we suddenly shift to perpetrator, and then we shift to savior. And of course, there's a lot of shadow there as well. So a victim will always project their shadow of power onto a perpetrator and feel powerless, and vice versa. And so this work, where we work with the archetypes and the unseen quantum potentials of individuals, is extremely powerful. And especially when we look at, our own life, where in our own life are we loyal to inner conflicts and conflicts or polarized type of rigid belief systems, where we start to judge other people, where we feel that they have less rights or they are less knowledgeable, where we become judgmental, because that is at the root of how things start. And if you can imagine that some of us live in families or live in corporations or neighborhoods where this is normal, then you can see, what are the challenges that we have to resolve to actually get out of the way and start to not so much bond in the quantum anymore with victim and perpetrator type of energy belief systems, but to actually entangle ourselves with higher consciousness so that things can shift. And although this is a very, very big task, I will share some of the, the revelations that I've had, looking at, for instance, how in nonviolent communication, some of the leaders have been able to build bridges between, let's say, the people in South Africa, where the Black people had to forgive the people that were really, enslaving them for quite a long time. And there's many examples. So I think if we look at these few examples, we definitely can also do it in our own lives. And by doing that, we will be freeing ourselves, and we will be freeing generations behind us and before us. And this is, I think, such a big thing that we cannot overlook. And I think if you look at all the movies, the movies that we would like to watch, when was there ever a movie about people that started changing themselves, and because of that they started changing the world? Most of the movies, people had to ultimately take up arms. They had to become a killer themselves to protect themselves. But maybe there are other ways, but this is up to the quantum field of the people that are attending. And this, what we call collective wisdom, will emerge, and it will grow over the weeks. And this is why I think if you really feel called to it, attend for 4 weeks, because huge transformation can happen from week after week after week. But you don't have to. You can also just come one time.
So, and then we get to the fun part, in my opinion, where after doing all this work, for the first 2 weeks, and the third week is a little lighter, hopefully. And so, we will not only, of course, there will be some past things that, when it's needed, but we will transform the states that we've been living in the survival, you know, with the fear and the scarcity and the news, you know, just being so overwhelming, maybe is the correct word. And we will just shift to the possibilities of love and joy and empathy and possibility. And yeah, so I don't even know what's going to come up, so I can't really give more examples, but I'm very excited to see the lightness, like, you know, suddenly it will just be lighter, because we will transform into another potential possibility where we feel good and safe, and we feel like we belong to a community and that we are doing good for one another, not feeling like, oh, you know, I gotta put my guard here because I never know what my neighbor will do. Or even with viruses and other things, it's like, you know, we've been always kept so separate from one another. So this is a possibility of actually, in a way, going backwards, in my opinion, because back in the day, that's how people lived. They lived in a land that they didn't own, but because they knew that the world doesn't belong to anybody, and they grew together, food together. They even exchanged food, and, you know, nobody was suffering. Actually, everybody had something to eat, and nobody was in the survival state. So it's maybe even going backwards. We'll see.
So we're going to do a process called the Gandhi. And the Gandhi is one of those processes that whenever we do it in the classes that I run, there's a lot of, let's say there's a lot of insights that come in, because we actually believe that the power of love can conquer your so-called enemies. And this is something that I cannot explain. This is something that you will have to experience. And so, you know, everybody will have an opportunity to actually work with their inner demons, the people that they cannot forgive, or the people that they feel are controlling them, or whatever it is. What we're going to show you is that how you can work with actually the heart center, and working with the unifying power of love. And we're not talking about conditional love, we're talking about true unconditional love. So this exercise is always really transformed a lot of relationships, where people, instead of seeing a perpetrator or a demon or a person that they really don't like from a place of resistance and rejection, as to actually maybe if I stop resisting this personality outside of me, if I start accepting that I have something to do with being bonded in them with a certain mindset or a certain belief system, then maybe if I come from a higher consciousness, I can break this bond. And that is really what this specific exercise is about. So it's a lot of people that have worked with me, they love it. And they do it also with each other, because it's like one of these really fun things that you can do over and over again on any subject. But when you do it as a group, and we're talking about these big world problems, it can be could be quite different. I don't know what's going to happen. So let's see.
A surprise always.
Yes.
Okay, so this is 4 weeks of what we offer, and we're planning for this to start next Wednesday, same time. It will end, when it ends, should be probably around, 2 hours, more or less. We don't know, because we need to finish what we start. So and then there's a price reduction if you attend 4 weeks versus if you attend weekly. Again, it's your choice. Check in with yourself to see what you're called. Sometimes you're only going to be called for one of them, or you want to do more. It really depends, and I really trust that intuition, and I feel like everybody should listen to it. So
What we can do is, of course, is that if you pay for the 4 weeks, and even if you cannot attend, but you would like to watch the recordings, we can give you the recordings. And I don't know whether you want to record, Selen, but I have a feeling, especially when we do quantum potentials type of constellations, it's very, what is it? It's very insightful to see actually, what did I say when I was unconditional love? What did I say when I was constellating peace? You know, what happened when I started loving the perpetrator? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just thinking ahead of like, actually, it could be worthwhile studying after we've done it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you say that because I don't record usually, and but I agree that in this specific one, the 4 weeks, I think it's important to record. The reason I don't usually record is because, well, several reasons, like privacy and everything, but also we work a lot with the ancestors and the healing and everything, and then we get the client to a point where it's all gone now, and there's no reason to look back. But this is I agree that this is a little different, the way it works. And yeah, I will record it, and like you said, Angelique, if people can't attend, and you of course will share the recording, because we both believe, I know Angelique also, we talked about this, that if you need to be there, you'll be there. And if you should not be there, then you won't be there. Even if you feel like, I need to be there. And we've had that before, right? Like, where people were like, I gotta sign up like 5 minutes before the session started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That does happen a lot. And then, or last minute, you're like, no, I just don't want this. And it's all okay. It's all okay. Because, if you need to be there, then because that's the thing, we work with one client in a group, and then the other people are either representatives or observers. But each person, even the observer who looks like they're not doing anything, everybody is contributing and actually holding the space, and they're doing something major.
Yeah.
And you don't know you're doing something major, you are doing it. So if you're representative and you're like, I don't know why I'm saying all these things and it doesn't make sense to me, but
Yeah.
the client needs to hear them. And sometimes, you're like, you'll say things like, why am I coming up with all these words? I don't even use this word, but the client, there's a reason for it. And as also we need to hear it. Sometimes we say things, that's why you're saying, Angelique, that it's good to look back to the recordings, because then you look back and you're like, oh, I said this and I needed to hear it. So,
Yeah.
it has its ways.
And I want to say that the way, because we're working with a big societal thing, and I was in a societal constellation today with one of the teachers that I studied with, the societal big pieces of work they're in a way personal and less personal. So let's say you look at war and peace and trauma from a transgenerational or archetypal perspective, you can really see that all these archetypes are in every family. They're in every culture. So we can do things in a way that actually are not as, let's say, it's not like you're showing all the trauma of your family to the whole world. It's actually more like, wow, I am entangled in this role play of archetypes over and over again. And we can literally also do things where you shift roles as an archetype. So there's lots of things that we can do when we work with these big societal constellations, where it doesn't have to be a mini constellation of one person. It could literally be the constellation of the group that comes in. And that's how I want to work. And Selen and I already spoke about how can we do this, with a whiteboard or with her whiteboard behind her or with Canva. So there's lots of things that we can do that can actually be really, really revealing. I want to share one of the things that I was sharing with Selen about how I work with quantum potentials. And in constellation work, they tell us, what have you excluded? Because you cannot exclude things, because when you exclude things, they literally show up in a way that is not pleasant. And so, for instance, you know, often it's a black sheep in the family, or it's a child that didn't listen to the parents, or the perpetrator type of war trauma has been excluded, and then we have to bring it in to create some healing. But actually, what's also excluded in our world is our connection to the quantum potentials, the healing potentials. And so in my work, I really very often bring in the quantum potentials as a symbol, or as an anchor in the constellation. And in one of the recent constellations, somebody was constellating love and prosperity consciousness. And it was so funny because it was blind. Nobody knew what he was, but everybody rejected him. And he was standing there saying, I just want to give love to everybody, but everybody is running away from me. And I knew what he was. And I was like, oh my God, this is just reality. This is like, we are more attracted to all these distractions, and we think we want love, but love is standing there wanting to embrace us. And we're like, I'm not ready. And imagine that these are the things that we might be finding out about ourselves, and how we get entangled with the transgenerational systemic trauma of war, retaliation, you know, having to hold grudges, not forgiving, and whatever. And so it could be very insightful, but it could also be light, because when Love and Prosperity Consciousness was saying that, nobody knew what he was. And when I explained it to him, he said, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And he actually said that every time that he was in another constellation of mine where somebody else was love and prosperity consciousness, he was like, whatever. He was like, why is love and prosperity consciousness even important? But he said when he was embodying it, he knew what type of peace it gave to him, and how he looked very differently at the trauma that was going on around him. So we don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully we will not be excluding love when it is constellated, but we don't know. We'll see.
So there's two things that I want to say to what you said, Angelique. One is that's why it's really important, in my opinion, not important necessarily, but I like to work like that in a blind constellation, because when it's blind, nobody really knows. So there's no judgment over like, oh, I should be like this or that. And the other thing is, we sometimes attract something close to us, but sometimes we also attract something, well, it's still close to us, but it's that we resist. So when we have a very definite judgment for something, which happened to me in, you know, Angelique's constellation years ago, actually, when the one she was leading. And, you know, this does happen a lot, actually, that I was not even picked as a representative, but I was like, I gotta speak, and I gotta, you know, share this. Something is like happening here, changed in me, and I need to express it. And it was about a big judgment that I had about, you know, people. I mean, if I go more specific, it was about mothers who give their kids for adoption. And to me, it was like, how can you do that? What kind of a love is, you know, I did have this judgment, you know. And then I took on the role of the mother who gave her child for adoption. Suddenly, like, without realizing, I was in that energy. And all I could feel was so much love for this child. And I was feeling, it hurts me, but I'm doing the best. So I'm very happy. I'm doing what's really good for this child. And, you know, I was feeling it so deep in my like cells that there was no way around it. Like no, like I wasn't wondering anymore. It was not a question. Is it really like this? Like I knew, I had a knowing. And after that, I was like, I became so appreciative of mothers who actually do that, because that is very much selfless love. And I didn't understand it that way. So that is true unconditional love. You make a decision that's in the best interest of this child, whether it may not be the best you know, thing for yourself. And that was a big turning point for me, you know. So that's like one example, for instance, that we tend to, and I kind of got that role to myself somehow, but we do tend to attract what we judge. And it's a beautiful process of healing that. And, you know, I really changed after that moment. And it's been, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, I think we did this. And I still remember, you know, all those years ago. So something shifted in me. So no matter what we are, representative client or whatever the field decides that, but it benefits all of us. So
yeah. I wanted to share something about, the workshop that I attended today. This person was working with government officials that are dealing with a lot of systemic trauma, because the war in another country actually came into this whole government organization that has to keep peace in the world, in our country. And he said that that after the constellation, where they really tackled the lack of guidance of principles, that everybody started going back into their own my group, and you can't have that in a workforce with people who actually are wearing guns. They're wearing guns. They have to go and break up big conflicts. If, let's say, a synagogue or a mosque is suddenly in fire, they have to go in and help people. And he said that at the end of the constellation, he couldn't tell us much about it, but he did say that just doing the constellation gave the chiefs of these departments a lot of softness in their heart. And so hopefully, even if we don't see it, we're thinking, oh, these organizations, they're horrible, they're like this and that. Behind the